everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending from where you're joining from. So today, happy Nurses Week. I'm so excited today. Like it's all about us nurses. In short, I feel like I should go everywhere and celebrate with everybody, but since we can't do that, so we can actually just celebrate virtually. Yeah, so I'm so happy about the discussion we'll be having today. I have amazing nurses from different places with different perspectives. So I'm just hoping that we'll have a very lovely conversation. And this time around, the theme this year for the Nurses Week celebration, it touched my heart so much because I'm very, very much interested in wellness, especially now that it has to do with my own wellness because I'm a nurse and my colleagues. So it is so lovely to have the opportunity to discuss this topic today. So with me today, I have Dr. Yempo. She's going to introduce herself and everyone else as well. I have Nurse Cordia, I have Maxwell, and I think Yingsha will be joining us in a minute. So we will be talking on caring for our nurses. You know, our nurses are always caring for patients, even in hospital or out of hospital. So this time around, for the next couple of days, it is just about us. Just permit us celebrate ourselves and enjoy ourselves and just feel pampered. Yeah, so we'll actually be talking about what it actually means by caring for our nurses, what it means by caring for our nurses, and how we can actually achieve this. Because when we talk about care, you cannot quantify care. It's not something you hold in your hand and you say this is care. So care means different things to different people. So we are going to be diving into it and actually see what care means to each and every one of us and how we can actually achieve this. So Maxwell will be moderating this event, but before we go over to hand it to Maxwell, I would just want everyone else to introduce themselves, starting from Dr. Yempo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Kendria, for organizing this platform for us to meet and just have a conversation, especially during this monumental time. We see that is International Nurses Week. My name is Dr. Nyepu Kemunho, and I am the founder of Nurses in Charge. It's my profound pleasure to be here among you all today. Thank you.
And I am Cordia. I'm a registered nurse based in the United States. I currently work as a float pool medical surgical nurse, and it's been a great experience. It's a pleasure and a blessing at the same time to be a nurse. It's a call to service, and so far, so good. It comes with its challenges, but we keep pushing, and hey, we are here to care for those patients, and it's been a pleasure so far. And I'm happy to be having this conversation today.
Oh, that's so lovely. Maxwell, I don't know if you're here already. Maybe you can go on and introduce yourself, then we can write on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ken, for giving me the mic. That's Sinubisi Maxwell. I'm a registered nurse from Cameroon, a nurse leader, a nurse advocate, the African chair for Nurses in Charge, and so much more of that I would like to dive into. So um, I wish to say happy Nurses Week to everybody. And I believe this talk today is going to be very productive as I look forward to moderate the discussion. I plead on every one of us to anticipate on time and then make the discussion like too direct, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, Ken.
Okay, that's so lovely. Thank you all for introducing yourself. And I'm so happy to have you here. And what is so good about this thing is we come from different places and we work in different places and we have different experiences. So we are coming from different angles, and I'm hoping that we'll have a very lovely discussion. So before we go on to let Darcy moderate, I would just like to ask just a question to Dr. Yempo and Miss Cordia and Nurse Cordia. Do you think caring for our nurses is really achievable?
I think it's possible, it's achievable, and it can be done. I want us to have that mindset. And I believe it starts from the place of leadership, right? I know nursing is so dynamic in the sense that we work as a group. We call it intrapersonal communication. We have a manager that's involved. We have the nurses on the floor. It's a whole team. Now, I believe that coming from people in position of leadership on the team, I believe that if they come into those positions with a mindset that we're not just there to to focus on moving the shift, emissions and discharges. We're also working with people that are caring for the patients. If they come in with a mindset that we also have to understand that nurses are people with your own responsibilities outside work. They have families, they could be married, they have responsibilities, they have their health to look after, after those long shifts. If we come in with the mindset that we're not just working as a team, but individually as people, we also come in with our own baggage, let me say our own baggage outside of work. I think that that can open the conversation to, okay, outside of your working hours, how can I come in to assist you? How can I make it better? Could I, could it be granting you your vacation hours? Could it be providing you with resources that can help you, when you need them? I think having these little conversations can lead us to the bigger picture of nurses actually feeling like they are cared for or someone is there to listen to them.
Thank you so much, 𝙘𝙖𝙧𝙧𝙨. Dr. Yempo, what do you think about that as well?
I too believe that caring for nurses is achievable. And in addition to what 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙧 said, I would say, yes, we have leadership, but caring for nurses starts with the nurse, because we should live to work, not work to live. At the end of the day, we are going home. The manager and the leadership are not going home with us. They have their own responsibilities, but we should take charge of ourselves, of our health. If a manager needs 5 overtimes and they realize that a staff never says no, and they continue to come to that staff, the manager is not taking a leadership role to be an advocate. That manager is actually burning up one candle to get it going, and then when that candle burns down, she or he goes to the next candle. So it starts with me as a nurse, and I'm speaking from a standpoint where I've worked in, I would say, all walk of nursing arenas except for pediatrics, a little bit of OB, but I've done correction, I've done travel nursing, and yes, this conversation is going to be sweet because it starts with me as a nurse. No one studied for me. No one took my exam, my NCLEX or whatever, my clinical uniform. No one earned it. I did it myself. So when I get into the arena, I'm in charge of me and my health and my well-being.
You know what? I love that response because it's coming from an experienced nurse. Now, I think I was coming from the perspective that being a new nurse, you don't know how to take your ground. And because you don't know how to take your ground, you come in wanting to give to the point where you get burned out. And it's like, at that point, that's when you go to management and you say, hey, I need this accommodation, I need this service. And that's when you see that the management is actually focused on getting the floor moving. They're not so invested in your personal life. And I think that's where, I would say that you start to take the advice that Dr. Kevin was talking about, where you say that, hey, I think I need to be a little first so that I can get my way. That's when you start to realize that I have to put myself first because nobody is going to come in for me. And I just wish that, if anyone here is listening who is coming into the profession as a new nurse, you have to learn to stand up for yourself because, if you're depending on another person to do that, it's going to take a long time, and you're going to realize that they're so invested in other things that you are not a priority. So it's very important to watch out. Yeah.
Kendria, you just put a fuel on the fire because 𝙘𝙧𝙧's point, 𝙘𝙧𝙧 have been in the field for 26 years. And when I first started, I would respond like you. But I bring on board today to truly tell people what Nurses in Charge offers is something called mentorship. As a brand new nurse, you need a mentor. I wish I had one. Well, I would say my mother been my mentor, but she's very shy and everything. But I need a mentor that would just tell me the truth, so I don't let people walk all over me. So that's one thing Nurses in Charge offers: a mentor to guide that nurse throughout his or her journey, and it's empowering to have one.
Oh, well, I'm loving the conversation. You know, when you guys were talking, I was just trying to like understand the your perspectives, because for me, personally, I think that caring for nurses is a joint thing. So, like Kozia rightly said, it has to do with leadership as well. And like you rightly said, it has to do with standing up for yourself and self-care. And again, it has to do with workplace culture. So it's a kind of a joint thing that everyone comes in and plays their own part. For example, there is one other dimension that I want us to look at when it comes to caring for our nurses, which is very little and but is actionable, and that can go a long way. That is which boils down to like a positive work culture, like a positive workplace. Because for example, even if I go out and I have my good vacation and I come back to a workplace that I feel like is a bit toxic, or I'm not listened to, or my colleagues are not really civil, or everything is just happening, I might just feel like, oh, I'm back here again. But if I'm able to prioritize my self-care, like you said, and the leadership there, everything is working and they are advocating for me, and the workplace, my colleagues are nice, everybody's doing their job, there is correct staffing, which is correct staffing is very tricky because we have like a global shortage of nurses. But when it comes to that, I can say the right skill mix. If that is happening, I will feel a bit better to do my job. And that is a way of caring for me, because if there is no balance between those that are on shift, I might feel like a bit overwhelmed, because I feel like, oh, I'm not really up to what I should be doing, or maybe there is a leakage when it comes to the energy. So I'm just loving this conversation, and yeah, for sure, everybody has a role to play here. So you're standing for advocating for yourself and self-care in general. And Kozia is talking about leadership, and now I'm talking about workplace culture. So that's it. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ken. I think the previous speakers were outstanding. I think I loved it. Like I was just seeing my life going through your points, and like everything was just like too clear, and it was flowing, you know. So to me, I believe this thing of caring of a nurse is like putting a nurse at the center, like a client being at the center of our care. Now, if you look at a nurse being like a client, which is at the center of each caring system, I think we now get to understand what it takes to redefine nurses and in supporting nursing. Like, for example, if you look at institutions today, it might be coming from political institutions that are governments, coming to a political institution being associations, right up to syndicates, then boiling down to bosses that are employers to see, and then coming down to our educational system. We lack all this approach of prioritizing nursing too to be somewhat at the center of caring, because if you are not having the right mindset, you can't care for somebody. It's certain. And if you understand that he who cares must be cared for, automatically we are reassuring the quality of care being offered by the carer, which are nursing. And there will never be a day you are defining nursing without defining care. It does not work. It practically does not work. So today, the issue of putting nursing and clients at the center of care on all care system becomes a priority, because the nurse is not too far from the patient, and the patient is not too far from the nurse. And that's why there's always this attitude of we saying there should be somewhat of credibility between a nurse-patient relationship. We've not said nurse-doctor relationship. We've not said nurse-midwife relationship. We are focusing on these things. So if the government, NGOs, our training system, our nursing frameworks our nursing policies, they tend to pay more attention on our healthcare services or on the quality of health we receive as care offerers. At the tail end, will be offering the right quantity and the right kind of healthcare to our societies, to our clients, and to the world at large. Because today we are not just caring at people. We care for people, we care for their families, we care for their entourage, and we are already seeing nursing into climate change. We're already seeing nursing into sustainable development goals, and we're already seeing nursing into somewhat of policy making and advocacy. So nurses somehow are becoming nation builders. We have seen nurses today who are getting into local government offices. Some are mayors, some are deputies, some are senates, some are, So they caring for this person to certain instance or to certain levels kind of reassure the quantity or the quality of help he or she offers to his client, which I believe that I think Nesken and Nescosia actually had to mention those aspects. And I'm very much happy. I think it's high time that the government sees and see what to do because today we cover 70% of everything that happens structurally and functionally in the hospital. And we cannot talk about the functionality of the hospital without looking at the health status of the 70% of those who are actually supplying quality health to the clients and their families and their environment. So I think it's kind of pettiness, and I think associations just like Nurses in Charge is trying to pronounce, and each and every one of us being an advocate with ICNs trying to raise more awareness on this point, would rather make us to shift away from nurses. They look at nurses being like saints, like angels, like the moment we put on our whites, the moment we stay with our whites, people just believe we're angels and we don't have difficulties. And the only thing that can come through our mind is just we being there for patients, we serving the shift. If it's three shifts, we are serving the shift. If it's 2 day shift, we are serving our shifts. And so lot of things that are happening. And they forget that the moment you don't care for your nurses, automatically the quality of care being offered by the nurses to the client and his family and his environment, it changes. And nurses also today have direct families. So a direct trauma from the clinic, from a clinical service, or from a boss, or from a non, or from a failure from an association to advocate for nurses, automatically will put nurses in a state of maybe burnout, which can go to depression, which can go to the development of mental health disorders, and which can go as far as possible to transform us from being on to transforming us to be unsocial, like what we see today. Many nurses today we are not social. We just stay at the lane of offering our next nursing care services, and it stays there. Above that, we are lost. And in doing so, I think we'll be creating more economic investment because today, if we're looking at countries who are considered more developed, we look at the quality of care and their healthcare system and the policy, bringing in now the concept of why should we prioritize mixed system of health financing, public system of health financing, and private system of health financing. If you look at systems who prioritize private system of health financing, they tend to pay certain levels of attention on their nurses as compared to public systems. Because in the public system, the government and institutions who offer these healthcare delivery policies and healthcare deliveries, they tend to define everything. And today we'll not talk about healthcare or caring for nurses without looking at the economic power of nurses. How much do we receive as salary, and how much is our salaries as compared to what we can inject into the national economy? Nurses today can be entrepreneurs, and a nurse who's an entrepreneur has something to say when it comes to the economic values of the country. And this is not the same definition when it comes to a public healthcare financing state and a private healthcare financing state, or a mixed system which is private and public system economic state for healthcare delivery. They are not the same. And there's so much policy that government officials are not advocating or putting it as a priority when it comes to boosting healthcare entrepreneurship. Because sometimes it also goes beyond physical health, it goes beyond it goes to self-esteem, which are closer to mental health. Some people today, they don't feel themselves as being just employees, as being just employees. They want to also be employers. Nurses today want to be consultants. Nurses today want to be leaders. Nurses today want to be named temp bosses. Nurses today want to be community leaders. They want to be community rebranders and so many things. So what are these people actually doing to reshape all these policies, to reshape this image? And what are we actually doing to showcase that we are ready to assume all these roles? So I think I would like to end here now and see how we get to moderate the topic in the next minutes. Thank you very much, Ken.
All right. Thank you so much, Darcy, for saying that. If I could pick something from what you said, that is to say that, like, when it comes to nurses, the government has a role to play, and in another sense, I think also it also depends on the region and where you find yourself, because each government has its own way of nursing is different in different countries, and each body manages its own nurses in a particular way. So you're trying to, like, say, encouraging continuous if I can understand, you're trying to talk about encouraging continuous professional development so that the nurse will not only be when it comes to scrubs, but they can also exploit other opportunities and supporting them to achieve that thing that they want to achieve. And I think that also has to do with the care, because if I feel value in a place, if I feel like my goals I'm able to achieve my goals working somewhere, I might feel like, oh, I want to keep working here. If I feel supported and I feel like my voice is being heard and I'm able to achieve other things when it comes to my career progression, it's going to help me stay there, and that is an aspect of care. So I was just thinking, Dr. Yimpo, you've been in the field for about 26 years, and I came across a research paper the other day that says that new nurses tend to leave the profession very early, their first year of their career. So what can you tell us that are just starting? Like, what can we do to take care of ourselves that will not burn out quickly? Or what strategy do you think we can actually use that will help us to keep going without feeling like, oh, I cannot do this anymore?
So I would say the first one is autonomy, keeping your autonomy, and making sure that as you go into the workplace, you have dominion over what happens to you. If you look at your life that way, look at your profession that way, you will critique the assignments that are being given to you. Yes, it sounds like you're being challenged, you're being a disgruntled staff, and all this staff who are always complaining, but someone will listen, someone will reason with you at some point. But you have to make sure that you're not overworking to the point where your clinical judgment is faulty, because at the end of the day, your patients' lives are at stake. So that's one major part, making sure that you are in control. And the next part is also making sure that you always remind yourself, why did I come into this profession? Why? What was my why? And if we lose sight of that, then we feel weary down the road. We feel like there is no purpose. But if we remember why, and that is one interview I've had with so many members of nurses in charge. What brought you into nursing? And my students currently in the university, I say, what inspired you? And the stories they tell, they're so touching. I say, write it down, because one of these days, when you feel that like you've hit a brick wall, you definitely bounce back to that why, and it will take you back to work. Sometimes it's family struggles, sometimes it's that grandpa you took care of. So just remember that sentimental reason that brought you into the profession, because we know nursing is a calling of your heart. If you're not in it for your heart, you will lose track, and you'll fall behind. You definitely probably go to another profession. But if you come into nursing with your heart, if as your calling, always go back to where it all started from. What brought me into nursing? And then hold on to that, and then remember, I am in charge, because everything that brought me to this point, I had a say into it. I had autonomy in the entire decision making, in the actions that brought me here. My achievement was my doing. No one did it for me. And I'll always go back to that. Because when we remember that, then we go back energized. We go back with being a little more intentional and find meaningfulness in the workplace. It can be a chaotic place, it can be toxic, but when you remember why you're there and you take control, you'll go a longer way. For real, you will.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Yempo. Thank you so much. It's really helpful, really. Thank you, because it's a bit tricky when you're still starting, like Nescodia was sharing. When you're still starting, you feel like you want to pour out, and sometimes you might even find it difficult to like set those clear boundaries that will help you, and you might feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. So it's really tricky to be able to separate what you really want from what others are expecting you to do, and being able to keep up to standard. So thank you so much for that advice. Nescodia, I wanted to ask you here, when it comes to caring for nurses, because I know you're also someone that is very passionate about wellness and well-being. So when it comes to caring for nurses, what do you think, in respect to like us, like narrowing down to like us colleagues, what do you think we can do to take care of each other in a workplace? How can we keep those professional boundaries that can actually help us to perform at our best and still feel happy working with each other?
So I strongly believe that creating a positive work environment has to start with us, the nurses, right? And once we're able to create that on the floor, and then we're able to have conversations that can lead to wellness. So I believe that among us as colleagues, we can start by having conversations with each other, like just talking about things that we could do outside of work, sharing experiences or vacational experiences that help to boost our morale when we came back to work. I feel like having these conversations at work motivates you. Like, the other day I was having a conversation with a colleague, and she was saying, oh, I'm getting ready to take this vacation with my family. And we got to talking, hey, what are you going to do? And she was like, well, I'm not only taking this vacation, I have another one planned at the end of the year. I'm like, hey, girl, you're just going to be traveling. And to be honest, if you didn't have anything planned for that year, you start to think like, hey, I need to do something for myself. She looks happy. She looks like, she's having the time of her life while working the same hours that I'm working. So I feel as though conversations can lead to that motivation that can help us, prioritize our wellness. So starting from there. And also I wanted to add something when it comes to this whole wellness topic. Darcy mentioned something. He mentioned government, he mentioned the private and public sector. Now, this is just what I have to add. When it comes to government, right, like getting involved in the whole aspect of nursing, I feel like nurses being involved in policies is what can actually help have a positive impact on the government influencing the nursing culture or the nursing policies. Like I mentioned earlier, there was a presentation that I did. I know it was outside of the live. However, there was a presentation that I did. It was at a nursing conference, and I got to see how nurses were involved in policy making, at least in this side of the world. And I got to see how much of a difference it made in advocating for nurses. Like, I remember they mentioned that there were a lot of international nurses that were here to study, and after that they were scared of getting jobs because of course their paperwork and things like that, and a new policy had come into place that were actually going to help them work for a certain amount of time, and with that amount of time they will now be able to file for their paperwork and be legal to work in the state. And I was just like, wow, had it not been that nurses that actually worked the floors and actually had experiences with, international nurses advocate for them, then how would this come to be? So I feel as though nurses taking position of leadership in the government plays a huge influence in how the government gets involved when it comes to policy making with nurses. Now, moving on to there, now we're talking about the managers. And I feel like the managers, I'm going to maintain my stance that they have a huge role to play when it comes to also like advocating for the nurses on the floor. But what I've noticed that the managers are so focused on policy. I understand that they're doing the job, but I just feel as though, they can do a little more, because if the decision they're making is not in alignment with that policy, then guess what? It's not going to favor you. And sometimes the adjustment that the nurses are looking for is not exactly in that policy, but I feel like those adjustments can help with longevity. Like Dr. Yempu was mentioning, not feeling burnout. I feel like it's what contributes to some people actually staying on the floor for those long periods of time, because there are very few nurses that I see on the floor. I see some that have been there for 20 years, 15 years, but majority of them have only been there for 2 years. And by the time they're hitting that 3rd-year mark, they're thinking, where can I go make more money? Hey, where can I go where, like they're already thinking of going to different places. But I feel like if the managers can really get involved in creating a culture where it can really maintain the nurses is very important. Like, for instance, now we have what they're saying is rotating shift. They're mandating nurses to do the rotating shifts. And I'm just like, how does that work for everybody? Because how about somebody that has never worked nights, someone that, prefers nights to morning? How about we come down to what do the nurses want? Do they prefer working nights or do they prefer working mornings, as opposed to saying that, no, they're going to work both shifts together? And, some people are getting drained as a result of that because they're not familiar with that kind of work environment right now, because it's part of their policy and what they're doing. They're not gonna sidetrack that because they want to favor the nurse. So I feel like, yeah, from the government to the managers who have actually been on the floor as nurses, they can be a little more lenient when it comes to pleasing the staff. Now we bring it down to the public and the private sectors. I did an orientation in the public sector. I work for a private sector, and I can say the difference is alarming. I feel like the work cultures there are different, and even the patient population is different. So there are a lot of things that come into play that actually influences the nurse and then impacts how they impacts their personal life, and there's a lot of factors that come into play. Leadership. Your work environment where you choose to work, your personal decisions. So a lot of factors that come into play. But I feel as though each of us at this position can be more open-minded than what I've observed working on the floors. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nurse Claudia. Yeah, I really agree with you, because there is this saying that you can only know where it hurts when you have the shoes on. So when you talk about like the policies, we can only influence those policies if we are actually sitting on those tables that those policies are actually made. Because I still feel like the stereotype that has always existed in the nursing profession, because people still have this stereotype about nursing in general, and I think this has gone a long way to affect the way nurses are looked, like the way they are viewed. And this alone also has a way of reconditioning people's mind when it comes to nurses in general. So I feel like we don't really have that the profession is not being looked at the way it should be, and there is no way. It's a stereotype actually, and there's no way we can just cancel this stereotype by just looking at it. We have to keep advocating for ourselves and bringing in the positive changes, the very little things that we can do in the workplace to make it better, so that I I'm feeling comfortable working in an environment, and you as my colleague, you're also feeling comfortable. And when you talk about management, I think it's a bit tricky, like you said. And I would also like to say that, again, when it comes to caring for our nurses, when it comes to at the level of management, it's also important to look out for like the skill mix, to be honest, because sometimes when you don't have the right skill mix, you might just doubt your ability, or you might just feel so overwhelmed throughout the day. But if you're able to delegate tasks based on people's abilities and just try to like rotate it um around everyone and try to understand where everyone is at, because we have different experiences, we trained in different regions, and we've worked with different patients, and that alone has shaped the way we behave, or the way we respond to situations. So if we are able to look at, if managers or those that are leading the shifts, our team leaders in general, are able to look at that aspect, it's going to help a lot. And again, when it talks about flexible work schedule, as you explained, because there are some people that would like to do night shifts, not because they really love to do night shift, but because they have families, and because of childcare and other things, they are able to do those nights so that their husbands or wives can also do other shifts, and they're able to meet up with their family needs and all of that. While others have different health conditions that will not permit them to do the night shifts and everything else. So I feel like if flexibility should be, it should be a bit subjective, like based on the person in question. It should be, it's a bit difficult because we have a global shortage, but it doesn't make it unachievable. So if we can look at it from that aspect, I think if I'm able to like work a flexible schedule where I know, oh, I'm able to take care of my family, or I'm able to rotate with my partner or my husband or whoever, or my wife, it's going to help me a lot, and I'll feel like, oh, I'm included in this workplace, and it's going to also boost my confidence, and I'll feel like, oh, I want to come to work every other day. Yeah, so I really think it's so,
Yeah,
it
Kendra, I don't want
really,
to cut you off. And when you feel like you're needed, that's when you get that motivation to stay. And because I
exactly.
feel as though what's happening now, if the nurses don't feel like you care, then I don't care. Like I want to go to the next place that is gonna pay me more. And if they don't care, at least I'm earning more, at least, But if I'm in a place where even if the pay is not as high, but I feel as though my opinions matter and I'm able to have a work-life balance that works for me, then I feel like that contributes to my longevity. Because we're living in a generation where it's just like that patience to like just be on the floor for 20 years and you're not trying to work with me. Hey, I don't think I really want to be here for that long. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Can I
true.
come
So
in?
yeah.
Can I come in on Nurse Kodia's point about managers? I'll just say that you cannot give what you don't have, and we have managers today who are thrown into their offices and in their roles, and they're inexperienced in that role per se, and also they may even be inexperienced in nursing in general. Leadership is not their area, but just because they are very spontaneous and or they have some favoritism going on, they get put in positions. At the end of the day, they are casualties at their leader under their leadership. Nurses will leave, and the institution has to rehire, retrain, and bring on new nurses. So when I did my study on burnout prevention, burnout and prevention in the ER, this was my doctoral defense. I found that the middle management and the one above them, they are the dial, and if they are dialing the wrong within if they're dialing within such a tight zone, then they fall back on policies because policy says so, so you have to do so. But if this manager is well experienced in life, in the profession, they would think twice how to treat and lead their system. They'll think twice and lead properly within that environment. Because yes, we have policies to follow. I've also seen, not only in studies, but in the real world, where there are managers who don't always go by the policy, and they keep their staff. Their units are well staffed because they are human focused. They are not policy focused. The protocol says so, and those managers know the protocol better than they know their staff. They don't even know if some of their staff are battling cancer. They care less. It's all about following the protocol. So if you have the managers who are being brought in on the wrong entry level, believe me, they are causing more economic casualties to hospitals, patients as well, because when we're understaffed, patients suffer. When we're understaffed, the institution has to pay double to go retrain new nurses and bring them on. But I don't know where the blindsidedness is when they don't see that those managers need their support, because if they're not being supported from above and the staff beneath them are always also fueling fire and they see the retention is there, they're leaving.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yempo. Like, what you just mentioned in summary is humanity, like having that human factors. I feel like some of us, that's what we want to see when we speak to the managers about issues, or we bring certain things to them. We just want to see that, at least that humanistic side of them. And some of them don't even give that. Like, I float a lot, and I remember being on the floor where the manager said, on this floor, I don't care what they're doing, but you choose one schedule. You're either day shift or you're either night shift. And that was the manager of that floor saying that. I'm just like, wow. And her reason for that, she said, you know what? I've been a nurse for 20 years and I've read researches, and I know that it's not good for the mental health of the nurse. And I'm just like, just seeing that side just excited me, because I could get to see that human nature in her, and that's a motivation. And I feel as though if we can bring that humanistic side of us, despite our roles, to our workplace, it creates a more safe environment for the nurse. Like, the nurse feels inclusive, which I feel is very important for us.
Thank you so much. That's right. Really, it is. Welcome, Stanley. Are you still there?
I believe Stanley and 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙧, they're both playing.
I don't know if Maxwell is there as well or not.
But it's their connection. It's not intentional.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry? Okay. All right, Maxwell, over to you, please.
I think I feel like I'm satisfied, like I'm really like fine. But then there are some key things that I just want to make mention of it, because I really want to try to liaise the connection that exists between caring for nurses and the economic power of the implication of caring for nurses. Now, if you look at countries today, you will see that countries who are more capital inclined and would tend to liberalize their healthcare system, they tend to pay more attention to nurses. And once they pay more attention to nurses, people leave from neighboring countries to come and seek for healthcare, in this capital state. And where they are, automatically the quality of care becomes exceptional. And you who actually lives in a capital state where the capital system of healthcare management prevails, we see that automatically people don't travel out to seek for healthcare services, except when the worst comes to the worst. Let's just quote an example. When patients leave from Cameroon to go and seek for healthcare needs in the US, they tend to move money from Cameroon to US, and automatically it plays some worth of values on inflation and international trade. Now, when nurses also leave, let's say they are traveling out of Cameroon to settle in the US, what do? They stay in US, they pay taxes in US, they work in US, they support the healthcare system of US. and automatically they are limiting the amount of money that would have been leaving US to go to other countries in case if the other countries they had a better healthcare system. And you will never talk about a better healthcare system without talking about the 70% of nurses. So nurses actually they portray economy. A country which is kind of head jeopardized automatically has a crumbling economy. Now coming back to your question, which is pertinent, seeing into what happens to beginners at the portal of entry into nursing profession and why they tend to desert. I would say that because the portal of entry is too is desertic, it's not user friendly. You see that majority of times when recruiters come and recruit, they work just on figures. We need a nurse with this number of experience that can sit into this role. And upon sitting on this role, might be the career negotiation, let's say salaries is this. Now, after signing the signature, after signing the contract, majority of them, they don't respect terms of contract. That's just one thing. Like you're entering into the profession like a beginner, they don't know that a beginner is just like a child that you are supposed to see through and mature through. They start leveraging more tax because they are figure inclined. They want to see how they can put you to the wall so that you give them the figures. And by the time that you start giving them the figures, it justifies that they're a good manager, which is not so. That's why sometimes I like to work with governments who believe that health is not it's not economic. They believe that supply of healthcare service is a dedication. But now we won't stay too much in those concepts. So one, we must support beginners. We must make sure that we train beginners. We must make sure that we give them enough time so that they be up their mental status. Because if you come in and then it's not supportive, it's time consuming, it does not give you enough private time to catch up with your friends, your relationship that you have been building for quite a long time, automatically people will desert. And the worst part of it is that beginners actually feel blocked now because we are talking about shortage in healthcare supplies, especially when it comes to nursing. Now, when you're coming into an environment which is understaffed, automatically burnout becomes the order of the day. Working extra hours becomes the order of the day. And then before you know, what do we do? You will desert. It's natural. So we should try to vote policies that support beginners, that look at beginners as humans, that also prioritize management based on previous experience. We should prioritize managers who have actually been nurses before or midwife before in such a way that we believe they have the experience and they have seen into what understaffed environment and understaffing environment looks like. So managing from experience actually will be best than judging from management, which is a universal theory. I don't
That's it.
know if you
Sorry
guys can
for
get
cutting
me.
you off. So I have to, from what you mentioned, right? Now, what I would like to know is
Yeah.
whoever was doing the hiring, are they aware that they're hiring a new nurse? Because if they're hiring a new nurse, I think there's a procedure that has to be followed, like a training that has to be done. So I want to know if are they sure that they're hiring that individual as a new nurse, because they have to be trained as a new nurse. Now, if they're hiring you as an experienced nurse with a contract, they're hiring you to fulfill a need. I don't know if you're talking about internationally or locally, but if they're hiring you internationally, they're hiring you to fulfill a need, a lack of or staff shortage that might be happening. And many times, the acuity of whatever unit they're trying to staff is like a high acuity unit. So because you're on contract and they are most likely paying you higher than they're paying their staffs that are already there, you're going to get like the high acuity patients. You're going to get what I call the hard patients, right? You're going to get those patients. And sometimes, because maybe if you're not used to the work environment as well, that can lead to burnout. I just wanted to mention that it's an expected thing. Like even internationally here, even if you were taking a contract, let's say, I'm in my state and I was taking a contract to work in New York, as long as I'm taking that contract, like my expectation is already that I'm going to get the high acuity patients because, I'm getting a little more compensated than the regular staff. So that's an expected thing. And those things, unfortunately, do lead to burnout. We the compensation, but also we have to weigh our options. Do we want to, take that benefit that it comes with at the expense of our mental health, at the expense of working like a slave pretty much. So like Dr. 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙨 said, it really boils down to our decisions, putting ourselves first. So yeah, that's another angle to look at it.
Okay. Thank you so much. 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙨, welcome. I can see your network is really troubling you, but I don't know if it's okay for you to say something. Okay. We'll ride on for now. I think his network is really a big issue. So we've been talking and learning and discussing different perspectives. So one killer question that I want to ask now that we can all answer is, who is caring for our nurses? And if we can narrow it down to self-care, how can we really achieve this? Because it's a bit difficult to like say I am taking care of myself as a nurse because I have different things, and self-care when it comes to nursing depends on an individual, because what I enjoy doing is completely different from what 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙀 will enjoy doing or Dr. 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙀 will enjoy doing. So who is caring for our nurses, and how can we achieve this at an individual basis? How can we really achieve this? Because it's really complex that we've been discussing. It has different components and different people need to come in to make this achievable. But when it comes to us as the nurses, how can we achieve this, please? Dr. 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙀, please, can you start?
Absolutely. So self-care has been widely talked about to the point where it's watered down at some point. But self-care, I believe, are those things we find fun, as you mentioned, rightfully. It won't be the same thing as any of us here would like. But things that make you happy, things that you know when you're doing, it just brings you joy. It just like it distracts you from focusing on all the struggles out there. But just that moment, it could be a bubble bath, it could be a walk, it could be pampering yourself, it could be, also advancing your education, because you know the end result is gratifying to you, right? So that's self-care. And also it could be giving, giving not in a way of giving to your patients that we do of caring, but it could be volunteering, giving away time somewhere else where it just rejuvenates you. So that's if you're doing it on your own, which is perfect. That's where it should all start from. But also, we can elevate it where nurses take care of nurses. 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙀 talked about that. When nurses take vacation together, they form a bond. They form a bond where if something's happening to 𝙘𝙧𝙧𝙀, we work together, but we're not just workmates. We hang out, we vent on issues. In a break room is another perfect place to vent. Go in there and just talk. Safe environment. It could be talking about the patients, how they frustrated you. That's letting it out instead of internalizing it. So all of those things are part of self-care. So it's hard to really put to put a number, or just to list it. There are many things, but at the end of the day, they just make you feel wonderful. But if you can also do it with somebody, that just takes it to the next level. Because if that person is in there, You do it for you do things on your own. So you be you, me, myself, and I, with three of us right there. Let's have fun. But when we bring someone externally into this friendship and or time where that we're having to heal, is great. If Cordia is not available today for us to do girls' night, I already know I'm content with myself. So it always starts with you. Who are you without others? How can you make yourself happy? How can you build a lifestyle that bring you joy and happiness? And that could be spiritual, that could be physical, that could be emotionally, but just bring them all together and start to live a life that is so meaningful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yempo. All right, Stanley, I can see you. I don't know if you were able to say something. Yeah, so we are talking on who is supposed to take care of our nurses and how can we achieve this?
Hello, I don't know if you guys can get me.
Yeah, one on one.
First of all, I want to apologize for the lateness. We're in Africa, everything is always unpredictable. But I thank God for bringing me present today. Okay, yeah, few like that was in March. I had an interview with the CEO of Nurses in Charge during kind of uh, award ceremony to recognize some pioneer nurses who have been doing some incredible jobs. I made a statement that the care for nurses is not only about nurses. Everybody, the general population needs to care for nurses. You get so because if you don't care for your nurse and then you have a problem and you go to the hospital and then there is a kind of a misconduct and your patient dies or you die, that's going to be a catastrophe, right? So caring for our nurses is everybody's responsibility. Everybody needs to advocate for nurses. Everybody needs to protect nurses, and equally uh, give nurses the opportunity to be empowered, especially governments and the private sector running healthcare agencies. And another thing is when we're talking about caring for nurses, we must be able to look at the concept of care from different perspectives. Because, like I said, some few months ago, I was discussing equally uh, with a lecturer of mine, and we were like saying, what are some of the challenges nurses face when it comes to self care? And one of the things is the cultural system that has been put in place has made us to believe that we must become workaholic to to make it, and that taking care of ourselves or exempting from work at some point makes us kind of be like we are lazy, we are not productive, and that is one thing that we must consider. We must change the present culture that makes nurses to be to be like they're workaholic. They don't have time for themselves. They don't give them that opportunity to rest, to relax and rejuvenate for quality patient care. You get look for instance like in Africa, we have so many nurses that when you go to the hospital, you find few staff. You get so there is a need for nurse retention before we can be talking about quality and quality self care for nurses. You get I don't know if you guys are trying to get what my point.
In fact, you're summarizing the whole conversation of what we had today, so it's good. Yeah, there's a need for
Oh,
retention, and yeah, so they need to come
yeah,
down to
and
our levels and understand our needs and implement them, and then I think we can go from there to creating a better work culture.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we need to make lots of changes, and it starts with us nurses. unless we start being united, finding strength in ourselves, nothing will change. You get, and we need to be kind of there's a need for research development among nurses, because nurses seems to be lacking when it comes to clinical research skills. Because like all of these problems we are talking about, i- if we keep talking like this and we don't put it into writing, those policymakers will not really understand our grievances. So the nurse in the ward needs to put something in writing, like do a research and show the administration or the policymakers that this is what we are facing. And through this, if this is being done, then I think there is going to be quality patient care, because quality patient care starts with quality work staff, and nurses make more than half of the healthcare workforce. So it's all about um, advocacy, developing ourselves as nurses, and trying to see how we can stand together as nurses to make a change, because no one is coming to help us. We are the ones to help ourselves. So we need to start going beyond what we were being told by the, can I say, the old system, because nursing is advancing like technology is equally advancing. So we need to change the way we do things. Yeah. So that's my perspective.
Thank you so much, Stanley. Thank you so much for giving us a summary of the discussion, to be honest. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Let's call, yeah, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, what I would like to say is when it comes to personal care as a nurse, just go out there and try something new, right? There's a personality of people that are known as introverts, and I thought I was that person until I started to go out there and try different things. So sometimes you just will never know until you try something new, and then you will find that you're going to find the explorative side of you that you never knew existed. You're going to see that funny side of you that you never even knew you had, or you're going to see that conversational side of you that you never knew that you had inside of you, or you might even find a new talent, a new hobby. So we can do all the talking and everything, but until you try, you just will never know how therapeutic and influential it's going to be to your personal life. So nurses, go out there, have fun. The world has not come to an end, right? At least we're still here, so we have to leave while we're there. So like, go out there and explore, please. No matter what it is, you're going to find that there's something you enjoy doing, and that's just what I can say. Just try.
All right. Thank you so much, next call. Yeah. So on my own side, I would like to say that when it comes to care again, individually, or when we narrow down the scope a little more, I would say we can also take care of ourselves, not at the end of the day, throughout the day. Once you're on shift, you don't need to wait until you go home before you want to say, oh, let me take care of myself. Prioritize, you use your lunch breaks or your coffee break for something for yourself. Just sit down there and just, if you want to stay quiet, silent for a while, stay silent. If you feel like your lunch break, you don't want to talk to anybody, you just want that time for yourself, have it for yourself. And remember, sometimes you might get really overwhelmed and you even lost yourself. Like, for example, the last shift I did this week, it was so pressurized, like, you know how the operating room sometimes can be. And when I was scrubbed in for this procedure, I felt like I was a robot, because I could only hear the voices of the surgeon asking for instruments and me providing the instruments. So for the first 5 minutes, I was lost. I could not feel my feet. I could not feel anything. I was just only hearing voices of people asking different things, or me knowing that, oh, after this stage, I need to give this for the surgery to continue. But it took me about 10 more minutes for me to regain myself. And now I was a bit present for the procedure. And when that happened, I felt a bit more better. I was more focused, and I could not just only provide what was needed or just anticipate that this is what I need to give next, but I felt like I'm now involved in the procedure. I felt like, okay, I'm now myself. I can actually feel my feet. I know, okay, this is what I'm giving next. I know that I am listening to this person. I'm not just listening to a surgeon, but I'm listening to my team member. And that helped me a lot. And it just helped me to relieve my stress. And I know sometimes it's difficult for to be actually mindful, especially when you have a lot to do, or when you feel like you're running behind schedule, or if you have a patient that is a bit demanding, you might feel like, oh, there's no way I can be mindful. But when you try to take deep breaths and try to come back to yourself and try to be there and not just being a robot and just doing things without thinking, why should I be doing this, or how should I do it differently to make it better, it will help you a lot. And that has really helped me, because I work in a really very pressurized environment, and you can lose it
I get
easily.
it.
But
I get you, Kendria. Very.
yeah,
Surgery is not for the weak.
it's not for the weak. So sometimes it gets so overwhelming, or especially when you're doing a procedure that it's a bit, you're still new to it, or you're just trying to like understand the whole thing, what is going on. You might just feel like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But I've noticed that recently, when I try to like say, oh, Kendria, you have this, you can do it. Just focus, just ask for help if you need help. And yeah, and one other thing, always ask for help. That's an aspect of caring. Don't feel like you have everything to yourself or nobody knows it all. Just try to ask questions, ask for help. If you feel like you don't understand something, ask someone to explain it to you. If somebody explains something to you and you feel like you are not able to still understand it, keep asking questions. Because when you ask those questions, you might feel like, oh, I'm asking too many questions, but you're in another way, you're trying to like save yourself from trouble, and also saving the patient from any harm. So let's just try to like incorporate this into our daily schedule, not forgetting yourself. If you feel like you just need 5 minutes off your coffee break or your lunch break to just sit down there talking to nobody and just focus on yourself, it's going to be helpful. Because I can tell you for a fact, some days are so overwhelming, and if you don't have your feet on the ground, you might feel like, no way, as I'm going home today, I'm not coming back here again. Yeah, so I'm so happy that we are able to share from different from different experiences and being able to learn from each other. So we will be ending the live in a few minutes. So I was wondering, Maxwell, do you have anything else to say before we go? I don't know if he's still here because the network has been tricky. Okay, while we wait for him to come, oh, I just want to say happy Nurses Week celebration to all the amazing nurses around the world. I'm so happy that we have this time to celebrate each other. And I want to say that try as much as you can to do something for yourself. Just do something like Claudia said, do something, try something new, just do something. You will love it. Definitely. Just try something. Especially this week that we are trying to like focus on ourselves and celebrate each other. Just be kind, just be lovely, just be respectful to your colleagues. And I think if we all put in the effort that we've been putting and we continue to like support each other and advocate for ourselves and take care of ourselves as we care for others, it's going to go a long way to strengthen our economy. Because we know that a healthy population is directly related to their productivity. And once an economy is productive, it's really helpful in different dimensions. So let us continue to celebrate. I think we still have a couple of days to go, but we need to like maximize the time that we have. And it doesn't only end with when they say, oh, Nurses Week celebration is over, but every day we should have a reason to celebrate ourselves. If you achieve a career goal, or if you've done something, if you do something that you've not done before, celebrate yourself, have the fun, just enjoy it, just do enjoy caring. You should not be like you have too much on your table, but try as much as you can, even when it's so difficult, try as much as you can to find time and take care of yourself and celebrate each other. um that's it. I don't know if you have something to say before we end the live, please.
I think we should be very much proud of ourselves. We should have more of our self-esteem. We should work with free autonomy, and we should have the courage to be more assertive, because today the environment and our society has made assertive communication to feel more like being vascalic, which is being abnormal to certain environments. But I will encourage each and every one of us to learn assertive communications, to be more advocative, to be more supportive to one another, and to stay STEAM, we're not giving up. Till we get there, not turning back. And I'm just using this occasion now to celebrate all our incredible nurses who are doing amazing things, and everybody on this panel today who has dedicated some time out of their busy schedule to make the difference. And I say, with this team, I believe we can make the difference. So I encourage each and every one of us to stay resilient, to summon the courage of not letting go till we get to our final objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Darcy, and thank you all for joining. And I really enjoyed the conversation. It was so lovely, and I've really learned a lot. And happy to see that we have a common goal. And no matter what we were talking about, or no matter our own perspective, we still had like a common goal that we want to achieve. You get what I mean? And it's really exciting to see that we share this common vision. And to everyone that has been able to watch or will be watching later, thank you all. And I'm celebrating all our amazing nurses again. And I'm so happy that we have the opportunity to create impact and to help people in their very what can I say, in their very vulnerable states, because sometimes patients come in their very vulnerable states. We are those that can actually give them that comfort and give them that encouragement and help them to see that there is someone there that is always ready to care for them. So I'm so happy to have you all here today. I'm so happy that you were able to make out time from your busy schedule, and we've done it. And I'm so happy that we are celebrating nurses, and let us continue in the spirit of celebration. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. It was great. Let's do this again sometime soon.
Bye, everyone.